can go live right now on my page. I'm gonna share yours and it's up. New show here. Check. Are we live? We are live? Wonderful. We are live and you're tuned in to Shifting Paradigms. I'm your host, B. Michael. You're listening to KUAW, LPFM 98.5. We're here at the W.E.B. Du Bois Learning Center, 4510 East Linwood Boulevard, where the Black Family Technology Awareness Association brings you this wonderful platform for community radio. I'd like to always thank and shout out to Baba G. Walker for always holding it down and keeping it up here behind the soundboard and with so many other things that he has going on with the community center. So always big up to Baba G. Today, we're going to be getting into some peace paradigmatics. We have a feature by the name of Kevin Muhammad with the Nation of Islam. He will be with us. He's actually with us now on the Zoom call. So peace and blessings to you, my brother. How are you today?
I'm doing great, brothers.
Wonderful. Alaikum assalam. I want to thank you for coming on to the show and agreeing to go ahead and, talk about some of this peace paradigmatic with the Nation of Islam. But of course, real quick, you can call in if you have any questions. Our number is 816-599-6893. Shifting Paradigms, our mission here is to stimulate critical thought in order to realistically redefine our narrative and positively reshape our reality through dialogue with self-determination. And as I was saying, this show is called Peace Paradigmatics. This show is dedicated to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. A brief bio about Elijah Muhammad. 34 years after signing of the Emancipation Proclamation, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was born on or about October 7th, 1897 in Sandersville, Georgia. They say the exact date of his birth remains unknown because record-keeping in rural Georgia for the descendants of slaves was not kept current, according to historians and family members. Nevertheless, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said his birth took place sometime in the first or second week of October in 1897 and set forth October 7th as the anniversary date of his birth. The stock market crash in 1929 was the gateway to economic misery that sparked the fuel of the Great Depression of the 30s. Moreover, America's racial situation continued in its downward spiral. Lynchings, race riots, and other forms of terrorism against blacks continued unabated. But Detroit, with its huge population of 1.5 million people, including 250,000 blacks, was beginning to see changes in its social scene. On July 4, 1930, the long-awaited savior of the black man and woman, Master W. Fard Muhammad, appeared in this city. He announced and preached that God is one, and it is now time for blacks to return to the religion of their ancestors, which he says is Islam. News spread all over the city of Detroit of the preachings of this great man from the East. Elijah Poole's wife first learned of the Temple of Islam and wanted to attend to see the commotion, what the commotion was all about. But instead, her husband advised her that he would go and see for himself. Hence, in 1931, after hearing his first lecture at the Temple of Islam, Elijah Poole was overwhelmed by the message and immediately accepted it. News spread all Soon thereafter, Elijah Poole invited and convinced his entire family to accept the religion of Islam. The rest we know is history. What the commotion was all about. Got some reverb going on in his microphone. Okay. And so we're going to give a perspective of this particular show, Peace Paradigmatics, and give a quote, and then get right into it with Brother Kevin Muhammad's. The perspective of this show is a quote from Elijah Muhammad, peace be upon him, who says, "Do for self or suffer the consequences." So that is a great segue to bring in our feature today, Brother Kevin Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum to you again, my brother. How you feeling?
Walaikum salam, brother. I'm doing great today. It's good to be on the show. It's good to have an opportunity to speak to your listening audience. Before I begin, I just want to say in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness there's no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. And I also bear witness that regardless of land, label, or language, there is but one God. I'd like to greet my brothers, my family, with the greeting words of peace we say in the Arabic language. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam. That's what's good. Appreciate you, my brother, no doubt. So just getting right into it, man. Let's get into who you are. Who is Kevin Muhammad? What are your origins? What state do you hail? What country do you hail from? And
So he's originally from Richmond, Virginia. So after he retired, we moved back to Virginia, right? So that's where I claim, because that's where I grew up.
Okay.
But at a certain time, my parents got divorced, and when my father used to come and pick my brother and my sister up, he would take us from where we lived, and he would always notice some brothers hanging around out on the bus stop. And he would always say to me, "They are your people," right? But he was saying it in a way that he meant, don't be like them. Don't just hang out on the corner. Go get a job and go get an education and that kind of thing. But it stuck in me. Those are my people, right?
Right.
So later on, when I got older and I went to college, I started studying African history. At a certain point, way back when, on cable, they used to have cable access stations, right? So a brother used to play Minister Farrakhan on cable. So one night I was up and I was watching the minister, and he was teaching on the indestructible black consciousness. And he was given the breakdown of what those words mean. And that really struck me, because he was breaking down the term black, and he was breaking down the term consciousness. That conscious is the state of being or quality of mind that is not dulled by, I think we lost you. It's not dulled by sleep or slumber. So that really hit me.
Mm-hmm.
So I started watching Minister Farrakhan every Thursday night when it came on, but I just thought it was him.
Okay.
I just thought he was a speaker or leader. I didn't think that there was a religion or Islam or anything like that. I was just interested in the information that he was giving. So about 2 years later, I had a roommate who a friend of his had joined the mosque in Washington, D.C. when he went to Howard University.
Okay.
So he started sending us books and tapes and that kind of thing. And then one day, this was really impactful for me. I had just went to the store. I had just bought a whole bunch of sausage and pork chops. But a book that he sent to us was this book right here, How to Eat to Live.
Eat to Live.
Right? So in that book, I started reading the section about pork and the effect that pork has on you. And then I looked at the book of Leviticus in the Bible. It says, don't eat the swine.
Mm-hmm.
So that day I had just went to the store. I went to the refrigerator and threw it all out, and I haven't eaten pork since.
My.
So that's how my journey pretty much started.
Deep, very deep, very deep. So that's just an ascent into consciousness, and I'm sure like many of us have a similar type of experience of coming to that. Can you hear? Can you hear me, Brother Kevin?
Brother B. Marco, I can't hear you anymore.
They went mute. Let's see. Can you hear me now?
Your mic is muted.
The mic on the show is not muted. The mic on the Zoom is actually muted on my Zoom. Type of experience of coming to that. Can you hear? Let's see. Can you hear me, Brother Kevin? Mic check. Can you hear me now, sir?
There you go. That's good.
So that's going to be reverb because I got mine playing. So he can hear it through mine, but can you hear me now?
Your mic is muted.
Okay. The mic on the show is not muted. The mic. Yeah, it's
I can hear you now.
It's a little reverb. Mic check. Can you hear me now, sir?
There you go. That's it.
So that's going to be reverb because that yours is going to be the play. Let me see something real quick, brother Kevin. Can you hear me now still? Can you still hear me? Okay. No? Nope. So he can't hear me without mine muted. I have to mute mine. Yes, he hears me now through my microphone. We're gonna get it together. Can you still hear me? No. And I'm just gonna go ahead and lead into another question. So as you were reading these books, I'm assuming were you raised Christian? Is that how you were actually raised, and then that transition started slowly taking place for you to get into Islam?
Christian? Is that how you were actually raised? That transition started slowly taking place for you to get into Islam?
Yes, I was raised at an Episcopalian church, and I went to Catholic middle. You know what religion you want to be. So we had like a class. And one of the things that stuck with me is they said that the Episcopalian Church started in 1066 with the conquering of England by William the Conqueror. And that never made sense with me. If Jesus is supposed to have been here, then why is that we have a church that started in 1066? So that never made sense. So that stuck with me. So when I started receiving the books of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and then I read this book, Message to the Black Man. In here, he asked the question himself that we need to ask who we got our religions from. Question, and he asked the question: if Christ founded the religion, how come the capital or the seat of power in Christianity is in Rome and not Jerusalem? That stuck with me.
Right.
And that didn't make sense. So I wanted to learn more. So the more that I learned, the more that I read. Like I said, I had a roommate, and there was a black bookstore in Richmond, Virginia at the time called 1/4 Bookstore. So we each made a list of like 20 books that we wanted to read. I would buy 10, he'd buy 10, and then we just switched. So I started reading Stolen Legacy, started reading African Origin of Christianity, and started reading everything. And it just so happens that when I was in college, Ivan Van Sertima was brought to our school. So I had the opportunity to go see him and learn from him. So I read all of his books. And one of his books that impacted me the most was The Golden Age of the Moon. So the more I started reading and then listening to Minister Farrakhan, when I was going to class, I would just repeat what I heard the minister say. Okay. Right? And my professor thought that I was well read, but I wasn't. I was just repeating what the minister said.
Okay.
So I was attracted to the Minister Farrakhan, not because of religion, because I liked my church.
Right.
I was interested in the information.
The history.
And even when I started attending the mosque, the church that I grew up in was around the corner. We had like a storefront mosque at the time. My church was around the corner. I would still go to Bible study at 9:30 in the morning. And at that time, our Sunday meetings were at 2 o'clock. I would go to Bible study in the morning at my church, and then I would go to the mosque. So I never really saw any division in what I was learning in the mosque. I just saw it from a higher level of understanding. So that's pretty much how I made my transition.
That's powerful. That's powerful. I think what it is, Baba, your mic okay on Zoom, so he can't hear because the mic on KUAW is mine. So if you unmute that one and I mute mine, that way it could probably be both. You see what I'm saying?
That way it could probably be both.
So I'm gonna mute this. Can you still hear me now, brother Kevin?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think that's what it is right there. Because I had mine unmuted, and the KUAW microphone was muted. But now I think that we got it situated. I think this is it right here. Okay, yeah. So the conversion process, getting into that, right? Because it seems like what you were saying, the political consciousness, the historical consciousness that you were gaining from Minister Farrakhan and from Minister Elijah Muhammad, that gravitated you towards that. But what brought the spiritual dimensions about it?
Well, actually, I'd say the spiritual aspect for me came a little bit later. So I was already in the mosque for probably about 2 years. And of course, I was reading and studying. But like I said, I didn't come for the religion. I came for the information. But the more I started studying, the more I started seeing what from the life of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the life of Minister Farrakhan, that it had parallels in Scripture. And what they were teaching had parallels that I started seeing were happening in our everyday life as Black people in America. So one of the things that he teaches, one of the main things is from Genesis 15.
Okay.
That the more I started seeing what I thought I heard something in the background.
No, go ahead. Yes, sir.
But
continue.
Okay, yes, sir. But that God made a promise to Abraham that his seed would be in a strange land and be afflicted for 400 years. But after that time, I would come and judge that nation that they serve. So when I saw that, and I started seeing more into Black people than just the historical, I started relating the historical to what's actually happening to us right now. And that the scripture says that after 400 years, the prophecy is that the Messiah would come to those people who are God's people, the children of Israel. So when I started relating that from a historical aspect and reading the Bible, and not as a historical book, but a book that is constantly unfolding in prophecy, then I started getting more into the religious aspect of it, because I could see the value of it. After 400 years, the prophecy
That's powerful.
is that the Messiah,
And I can actually relate to that as well. You know, at one point in time, I was like on the precipice of entering into the nation, being that I was a very huge proponent of Malcolm X.
Right.
That autobiography definitely changed my life culturally, historically, because I was just deaf, dumb, and blind at one point in time. There's really no other way to put it.
Like all of us.
Right. And so that book, like, it sparked the light. You know, and then the movie came out, and that really, you know, precipitated some more things for me. And I just continued my studies, you know. And it's so interesting when I came into the consciousness that I currently, right before I came into the Israelite consciousness, I told myself I wanted the discipline of a Muslim, the meditation practices of a Buddhist, the faith of a Christian, you know, and the understanding and consciousness of an Israelite. And so that just kind of fused, and I found that, you know, all praises to the Most High. And so, you know, it's so interesting. You bring up children of Israel, and I know that's something that Minister Farrakhan has been saying for a while, is that, you know, Blacks are the true children of Israel. And I know that's something that is a buzz in the media as of now. You know, there's even, you know, statements of anti-Semitism that are being made due to some of the statements that Minister Farrakhan has said about the Jews. And of course we have the book, The Secret Relationship Between the Jews and the Slave Trade, you know, which I'm sure you're about to pull up and show that, no doubt. And so, I mean, expound on that some, if you don't mind. Like what does the Nation of Islam hold as a tenet as relates to that particular matter? What anti-Semitism is, who are the children of Israel? And just to clarify that, because I think that there's a lot of still confusion with some of the statements Deshaun Jackson have made, with some of the statements that Nick Cannon has made. Like, how can we reconcile that? Like, what is the matter of fact as relates to that statement? On that some, if you don't mind. Like what?
Well, that, you know, that's a good question.
as
I know
tenet as
if
relates to
anybody
that
saw the
particular
interview
matter,
that
what
Nick Cannon did with
anti-Semitism
Professor
is, who
Griff,
are the children of
they
Israel,
broke down
and just
the
to
actual
clarify
meaning
that,
of the
because I
term
think that there's a lot of still
anti-Semite,
confusion
and Semite had to
with
do with
some of the statements Deshaun
anyone who
Jackson
speaks
has
the
made, or some of the statements that
Afro-Asiatic
Nick Cannon has
languages,
made. Like,
who's
how
from the area
can
was
we
called the Holy Land,
reconcile
Egypt,
that? Like, what
Northeast Africa,
is
the
the
Levant,
matter
Saudi
of fact as
Arabia,
relates to that?
Ethiopia, that whole area. And as we know, those are populated by black people, right? So we can't be anti-Semite. So that's what they were saying. However, there's a saying that anti-Semite used to be someone who didn't like Jewish people. But the term anti-Semite now is really anybody that Jews don't like, right? So the very building that you're in now, the Boys Learning Center, he was called an anti-Semite.
Interesting.
Because he traveled to the South and found out that the Jews became the people who took over the slave plantations after the Civil War. So in his second printing of the book, The Souls of Black Folks, they made him take that line out.
Wow.
Because they called him as anti-Semite. Then you have Booker T. Washington, because he was trying to up from slavery to do for self. They called him an anti-Semite. And then today, we're celebrating the anniversary of the birth of the most honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Is that right?
That's true.
Who gave us the red, black, and the green flag. But he was called an anti-Semite because he came with the banner, one aim, one God, one destiny, and wanted black people to do for themselves, right? And J. Edgar Hoover, who we know who was over the COINTEL program. But what a lot of us don't know, but back in the 20s, he made his reputation by going after Marcus Garvey.
Right.
So they arrested him, and many people don't know that after the trial, and he was found guilty, he said the Jews set me up. There was a Jewish judge, a Jewish prosecutor, and mainly Jewish people on it.
He went mute.
So they called him an anti-Semite. So when we're talking about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, a lot of people are lazy researchers or lazy after the readers. So we have to understand, where did the controversy with Minister Farrakhan and the Jews start? It didn't start with him. If we know from coming out of the 60s, the Black liberation movement had somewhat of an affinity toward the Palestinian people. So when President Carter was president, he appointed Andrew Young, who was a co-worker of Martin Luther King, to be the UN ambassador. But because we had an affinity towards the Palestinians, and he made it known, the Jewish leaders jumped on Ambassador Young and pressured President Carter to sack him from being the ambassador. So let's jump forward. I'm going to try to run through this very quickly because we got to get some proper background. Okay, and I'm going to try to bring it up to date real quick. So in 1984, when Reverend Jesse Jackson was running for president, right, he made a comment in support of the PLO and Yasser Arafat. So they called him an anti-Semite.
Wow.
And Reverend Jesse Jackson's slogan while he was running for president was "Run, Jesse, run." But when they called him an anti-Semite, the Jews started chanting "Ruin, Jesse, ruin."
Wow.
So Minister Farrakhan stood up to support his brother, right? So he said, and then also many Jews were threatening Reverend Jesse Jackson's life. And at that time, the Secret Service was not providing security for Reverend Jackson. So Minister Farrakhan had the men, the FOI, provide security for Jesse Jackson. So the minister stood up to defend his brother and said, "We're not going to allow you to kill a brother." He said, "We can afford to lose an election."
That's mute. Can't hear Baba G.
Right after that,
I know what it is. And at that time,
the Jews called the minister a black Hitler. So
black
they
what?
attacked the minister, sir.
They called him a black what?
They called him a black Hitler.
Oh, wow.
So shortly after that, the minister made a lecture. He said, "Don't compare me to your wicked killers." Right? And then he said that Hitler, the only way you might be able to compare me is because after World War I, Germany was in shambles. But when Hitler rose up, he rose Germany up to be a great economy at that time. So they took that to say that the minister called Hitler great. But you are a student of the English language, right?
Right.
Good and great are not the same thing
At all.
It's good. The comparative is better, and the superlative is
Great.
is best.
Right. Best. Good. Better. Best. Right.
Great has to do with magnitude, what impact you have on the world. So it was from that time that they tried to slander the minister, right?
I see.
So we know, as black people who have been oppressed, we don't want anything to do with hatred.
Right.
We don't want anything to do with hating anybody else, because that's what we have experienced. So they have painted that brush on the minister and taken his words out of context, right? To keep us from listening to him. So if we fast forward to what's going on right now with Nick Cannon, right? They took Nick Cannon's words out of context. But what many people don't know is that he did that interview with Professor Griff last year, 2019.
Yep.
But he didn't release it until June the 26th. Right? How come they didn't say anything about it as soon as it happened? I'll tell you why. Because Nick Cannon was present when Minister Farrakhan gave a major address on July the 4th called The Criterion. He was there, T.I. was there, Stephanie Mills was there, 2 Chainz was there, a lot of people were there, and over 2 million people watched it on YouTube. Right? But they came after Nick Cannon to try to silence him because he has a global influence. So if they can use anything they want to try to silence Nick Cannon, they think they will keep people from first learning the truth of who we are as a people, and then also listening to Minister Farrakhan. That's what it's all about.
Very powerful. And it's interesting because I did some research on that myself, on that term anti-Semiticism. And I found, based on a brother who actually posted something, this brother I build with, he said the founder, and I looked this up, the founder of that word, or the person who coined that word anti-Semiticism, his name is Wilhelm Marr. And he brought this up in the 18th century, so the 1700s. And his concept of anti-Semiticism focused on the supposed racial and not the religious characteristics of the Jews. So he was dealing with this in a secular sense. And you hear the Jews today talk about, well, this is anti-Semitism because it's our faith. At the root of anti-Semitism is a secular contempt, you can even say, for what he said was a political lexicon established against a popular movement that was based on anti-Jewish beliefs. It goes on to say that in his political tract, he warned that the Jewish spirit and Jewish consequences have overpowered the world. He called for resistance against this foreign power before it was too late. He thought that before long there would be absolutely no public office, even the highest one, which the Jews will not have usurped. For Mr. Marr, or for Marr, it was a badge of honor to be called an anti-Semite, right? Marr and others employed the word anti-Semitism in the largely secular anti-Jewish political campaign and became widespread in Europe around the turn of the century. So he brought this in light in terms of the Aryan roots and then the Jewish roots. So he was dealing with more genetics as opposed to faith. He wasn't dealing with the faith of the Jews. They had what they called Judenhass in the German language that specifically related to the contempt of Jewish religion. But this was not a matter of Jewish religion. This was a matter of what he said was genetics. So it's just an interesting platform, not platform, but a field of view that we have to put things back in proper perspective. Because for me, I'm an etymologist. I want to deal with the origins of words and how the word originally applies and what it means. That is
Right.
very important for us to delineate what this is all about. Anti-Semitism at its root was not about religion. It was about political power. Okay. It's just an interesting. We're gonna take a brief break. It's about 6:30, but I want you to hold your thought. You know, we're gonna come back. We're gonna clean up this microphone, and I know what it is actually, and we're gonna come back and finish this interview. But you're listening again to KUAW, Shifting Paradigms with B. Michael with our feature today, Kevin Muhammad with the Nation of Islam. We will be back very shortly. Anti-Semitism at its root was not about religion. It was about political. So, Kev, what I think we're going to do, I'm going to log out of my Zoom. Baba G, would you be able to send a Zoom? Because I think that's what it is. It's my Zoom conflicting. Yes, that's what it is. So I'm going to inbox you another Zoom meeting, Kevin.
Can you text it to me?
You want me to text it to you? It'd be better to text it.
Because I'm on my phone.
Okay, yeah, I'll text it to you. That way, it will stop all this reverb. So I'm gonna end this meeting right now, and then I'm gonna text you the other one. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Baba G, would you be able to send a Zoom? Because I think that's what it is. It's my Zoom. No. Yes. Because that's what it is. That's the only thing I can think. I'm gonna inbox you another Zoom meeting, Kevin. So you just, I'll text it to you that way. I can get it to him. Stop all this reverb. I'm gonna end this meeting right now, and I'm gonna text you the other one. Okay? That's what it is.